Ashton couldn't stop thinking about the kiss he and Dealey had shared earlier. The way she'd kissed him had been spontaneous, thrilling, and it ignited a feeling in him that he didn't know how to handle. His thoughts spiraled, the memory of her legs wrapped around him, the warmth of her lips on his. But then reality set in. Dealey was a virgin. This was Dealey, his best friend. He couldn't let himself get lost in those thoughts. Not now, not ever. He sat at the kitchen counter, flipping through the newspaper absently. When Dealey's voice broke through his musings, his gaze flickered toward her. "I'm ready. What do you think?" The sight of her in that red dress made his heart race. The dress hugged her figure, showing off her curves, and he couldn't help but appreciate how stunning she looked. For a moment, it almost felt like he was seeing her for the first time. He looked at her from head to toe, his mind struggling to comprehend the impact she had on him now. She was more than his best friend. She was someone he wanted in ways he shouldn't. As his gaze wandered to her cleavage, his pulse quickened. "Right. We're ready then," he said, trying to mask the sudden rush of desire. Dealey raised an eyebrow at him, clearly confused. "What?" "You look great." "Really great," Ashton replied, his voice strained as he attempted to push the thoughts away. Dealey blushed slightly, her cheeks coloring with the attention he was giving her. She smiled and picked up her purse, moving toward the door. As they walked down the hallway toward the elevator, Ashton struggled to keep his eyes from straying. The sight of her moving in that dress, the subtle bounce of her hips, was almost too much. He had to force himself to focus on anything else. The elevator doors closed behind them, and the confined space made the air feel thicker. Dealey glanced at him, a mischievous glint in her eye. "You're not wearing your glasses," she pointed out, changing the subject. Ashton chuckled. "Nope, or my usual clothes either." "Nope," she replied. "I didn't know you had such a nice suit. It's like I'm seeing a whole new side of you." Ashton smirked. "I clean up well when I need to." She laughed, throwing her head back, her neck exposed, and Ashton couldn't help but feel that familiar spark of attraction. Wouldn't want to wear it more than once. That would be scandalous. When they reached the lobby, Ashton offered his arm, and Dealey linked hers with his. They made their way out of the building and into the waiting car. As the car pulled away, Dealey's excitement was contagious. "I still can't believe this is happening. I got in, and now we're going to celebrate," she said, grinning ear to ear. "I knew you would," Ashton replied, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "I always knew you'd get in." She smiled shyly, glancing out the window. Her hair swept across her face, and for a brief moment, Ashton found himself mesmerized by how beautiful she looked. "You should wear your hair down more often," he revictored, his voice almost a whisper. She shrugged. "It's not that different. Just left it down and styled it a bit." "Well, it's working," he replied, his voice sincere. When they arrived at the club, Ashton led the way to the front of the line, where the bouncer waved them through after a quick exchange of words. Dealey looked at him, impressed. "How do you know the owners?" she asked with a smile. "I've done some business with them," he explained, smirking as they walked inside. The club was packed, the music loud and pulsing, but Ashton's focus remained on Dealey. As they moved through the crowd, their proximity made his pulse quicken. She was so close, he could feel the warmth of her body against his, the soft press of her chest against his arm. He had to remind himself that this was his best friend, nothing more, nothing less. They reached the bar, and Ashton ordered a round of shots. He handed one to Dealey, raising his glass in a toast. "Here's to you, Dealey. To the genius who's going to cure cancer." She laughed lightly, her cheeks flushing. "No pressure, huh?" "None at all," he grinned. "You've always been destined for greatness." Her smile softened, and for a moment their eyes locked, the air thick with unspoken feelings. But before either could speak, Ashton called for another round of drinks. As they settled into their seats, Dealey looked at him with a playful smile. "How's work?" "The usual," Ashton replied, not really in the mood to talk shop. "How's it been with you?" "I feel like I haven't heard much about it." She shrugged. "It's been good. A little strange to get used to all these changes. Like staying with you. Sometimes, I still feel like I should be heading back to my old apartment." Ashton didn't want her to leave. He liked having her around, more than he cared to admit. "Have you heard from your apartment manager?" "Yeah, the renovations are still happening. I think I'll be out of your hair soon." Ashton winced, even though he tried to brush it off. "You know, I like having you around," he admitted, meeting her gaze with a sincerity that surprised him. She raised an eyebrow at him. "Yeah? Even with all my movie nights and late-night snacks?" Ashton chuckled. "You keep me grounded. Honestly, it's not so bad." But if you insist on leaving, I'll just have to figure out how to live without you. Dealey laughed, but it didn't hide the wistful look in her eyes. I guess we've always made a great team. They finished their drinks, and as the music shifted to something slower, Ashton couldn't help but remember all the times they'd danced together in the past. He stood and held out his hand, grinning. Come on, let's show them how it's done. Dealey hesitated. You know I don't like dancing in front of people. Come on. Just for me, he coaxed, his tone gentle. She rolled her eyes but took his hand. You're impossible. You know that? They made their way to the dance floor, where Ashton held her close, guiding her through the moves. He could feel her body relax in his arms, the connection between them undeniable. As the song played on, he spun her, pulling her in for a brief but intense moment, where their faces were inches apart. But then the song ended, and reality set in. They stepped apart, both of them a little breathless, a little stunned. Ready to head home? Ashton asked, his voice rough. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, and it was more than just the dance. Dealey nodded, and they made their way to the exit, laughter and playful banter filling the air between them as they walked back to the car. The evening had been everything they'd hoped for, fun, easy, and full of memories. But for Ashton, something had changed. The feelings he had for Dealey were no longer just those of a best friend, and he couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she felt the same way. Ashton and Dealey were still laughing uncontrollably as they stumbled out of the elevator, heading toward the apartment door. Neither of them was truly drunk, just a little tipsy. Dealey more so than Ashton, but their laughter had been so wild that it had left them breathless and a little unsteady on their feet. And then nobody said anything, and Mrs. Mulligan went through the rest of the class with that streak of black lipstick across her lip. Dealey howled, clutching her stomach as she entered the kitchen. She looked like, oh, you know who. The bad haircut didn't help in that department, Ashton teased with a chuckle. Dealey opened the cabinet where Ashton kept his alcohol, her fingers tracing the bottles until she landed on the Jägermeister. Aha! She exclaimed, pulling it from the shelf. Someone found my secret stash, Ashton said with a raised eyebrow. I rarely drink that stuff, but Raphael likes it. Dealey didn't seem to care as she twisted off the lid, grabbing 2 shot glasses from the counter. Is it your bedtime, lightweight? You can call it a night if you want, but that just means more Jaeger for me. This bottle's not going to drink itself. Ashton smirked and stepped toward the counter. Are you challenging me? Her eyes sparkled as she swayed her head to one side. Maybe I am. Challenge accepted. Ashton waved toward the shot glasses. Pour away. The purple liquid filled the glasses, and they both threw back their shots. Dealey's hair was tousled and wild, her glossy lips slightly parted, and her eyes gleaming with mischief and contentment. You were quite the vixen out there on the dance floor, and now you're pouring shots, Ashton teased. Seems like I've stirred up your wild side. You sound so surprised, Dealey shot back, her voice teasing. One strap of her red dress slid off her shoulder, and without thinking, Ashton reached across the counter, hooking his finger beneath the fabric to slide it back in place. Her eyes flickered to his hand, her gaze intense as it grazed her skin. Her body reacted, the air between them thickening with unspoken tension. Can you blame me? Ashton asked, his voice low. All I've ever seen is the Dealey I have to coax into trouble. Who knew you're perfectly capable of getting into it on your own? Dealey's lips curved into a smile, though there was something mischievous in her eyes. Maybe Dr. Delilah Stevens is a different woman, she said, scooping up the Jägermeister and shot glasses. She headed toward the couch, her movements graceful. Or maybe you just don't know everything about me, she added, settling down beside him on the couch. Ashton sat next to her, leaning in. Touch. Maybe we can work on that. Dealey shot him a playful look. Now it sounds like you're the one challenging me. Oh, I am. Ashton poured 2 more shots. I'm challenging you to a game of truth. Do you remember how to play? Her eyes lit up, clearly excited. Like truth or dare without the dares? That's right, Ashton confirmed with a grin. No dares, unless you want to go streaking down the hallway. That might get me another talking to from the building committee. And after the prank calls we made to your dad last time, I think he's had enough stress for one lifetime. Dealey snickered. True. So, who goes first? I'll take the first round. Ashton raised his glass toward her, his grin sly. Hit me with your best shot. Dealey grinned back, a thoughtful look in her eyes as she pondered the perfect question. Okay, I've got one. How many women have you slept with? Ashton paused, blowing out a long breath. Oh, we'll be here all night if I try to calculate that one. Dealey laughed. So, it's a lot, right? Give me a ballpark figure. More than 20? Oh, yeah, Ashton said, raising an eyebrow. More than 50? Ashton scratched his chin thoughtfully. Maybe. Keep going. More than 75? She asked, her voice rising in disbelief. But less than 100, right? Ashton thought for a moment, his eyes glinting with amusement. I'd say that's a fairly accurate guess. Ew. I always knew you were a ladies' man, but damn, Deli said with a laugh. Okay, drink up, man whore. They both threw back their shots, wincing slightly from the burn of the Jägermeister, before immediately pouring 2 more. Now, what about you, virgin? Ashton teased, his tone playful. Since you're untainted by how many guys have you know? Dealey groaned and rolled her eyes. I can't tell you after you gave your number. It'll sound pathetic. No way, Ashton said, shaking his head. I answered it, so now you have to. Fine, she sighed, looking up at the ceiling. My number is 1. Joe, last year in high school. Go ahead, talk your shit. I know it sounds pitiful. Absolutely not. You're just more selective. It's classy. I like it. I admire it even, Ashton said genuinely. Now, drink up. Inside, Ashton felt a warm, protective feeling swell in his chest. He didn't like the idea of any random guy being with Dealey like that. He was glad to hear it had been someone special to her, even if it had been years ago. Thanks for coddling my ego, Deli quipped. But okay, I've got another one. Since you've slept with so many women, where did it all begin? Who was your first? Ashton grinned, leaning back slightly. Oh man, you're not making this easy on me. Hey, this was your idea, she reminded him. Are you saying you can't handle it? Fine, he sighed. It wasn't anyone you know. My sophomore year of high school. I went to a party at a sorority house. I was playing beer pong with this Irish girl named Cara, and we ended up making out. She dragged me to her room, and one thing led to another. Dealey's eyes widened, and she lifted her glass in a silent toast. And thus, the ladies' man was born. Ashton laughed, shaking his head. Yeah, I guess so. As music from their high school days played softly in the background, Ashton raised an eyebrow. Here's one for you. What's your deepest secret? Dealey gave him a sarcastic grin. Ooh, just my deepest secret? You sure you don't want my bank account number while we're at it? Now that you mention it, yeah, I could use it, he joked. She rolled her eyes. I assure you, the balance wouldn't be what you're used to. Don't try to change the subject, Ashton said, his curiosity piqued. Dealey looked away, and for a moment, Ashton could see the wheels turning in her head as she considered her answer. What could be buried deep inside her? Tonight had shown him that there was still so much about Dealey that he didn't know. His curiosity grew. All right, Dealey finally said with a resigned shrug. If you really want to know, I've always wondered. Yes? Ashton prompted, unable to contain his interest. I've always wondered what it would be like between us, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She gestured between them, her eyes now searching his. Ashton froze for a moment, his mind scrambling to process what she'd just said. Between us? What do you mean? She looked at him as though it should have been obvious. You know what I mean. That. Ashton's mind raced as the words slowly clicked. That? Dealey's eyes twinkled with mischief. Ooh, she teased. You asked. Don't shoot the messenger. Ashton was speechless, his mind reeling from the confession. She wanted him? Not what he had expected at all. In fact, he wasn't sure what to think, but he couldn't deny that a part of him was thrilled. Ecstatic, even. But the angel on his shoulder, the part of him that still thought of Delay as his best friend, told him to be careful. She was tipsy, and he didn't want to take advantage of her. What if you waited for Mr. Right? He asked, the words slipping out before he could stop them. No, she replied, shaking her head with a playful smile. I've waited long enough. Longer than you think. Ashton wasn't sure what to say. Her confession had thrown him off balance. Did he want to be that person for her? He couldn't help but feel conflicted. You trust me? He asked quietly. Dealey nodded, her eyes serious now. I do. I trust you. And well, I love you. Ashton's breath caught in his throat. Delay. She shook her head, as if realizing the weight of what she had just said. I know, she muttered, clearly flustered. Forget I said that. You don't have to say anything. But it was too late. The moment was already hanging between them, shifting the air, leaving both of them at a loss for what came next. I never thought about us like that, Ashton said softly, almost to himself. She smiled sadly, her eyes downcast. I know. But it's okay. Forget it. You've been a great friend tonight. But I should go to bed. Wait, Dilly. Don't leave, Ashton said, feeling something pull at him as she stood abruptly. I didn't mean to upset you. I never thought about it. We've always been friends. She smiled faintly, but there was sadness in her eyes. Right. Friends. Good night, Ashton. And just like that, she turned to go. Dilly couldn't breathe. The moment she saw Ashton, his wide eyes locked on hers, her heart hammered in her chest. Everything she had planned, everything she thought she could be, felt like it shattered in that instant. She didn't know what had gotten into her. The euphoria from receiving her acceptance letter, the thrill of the accidental kiss they'd shared, however brief it had been enough to make her forget about everything else. For a while, it was like she was living in a dream. She had told herself she could be that confident, irresistible woman, the one who danced with the most handsome guy in the room, without a care. More than that, though. She had convinced herself that she could be the kind of woman Ashton might actually want. But now, as she watched him, reality came crashing back. She had forgotten everything that stood between them, everything that made her feel like she wasn't his type. She had let herself forget she was just the nerdy girl who had been friends with him for years, and that was all she would ever be to him. And there she stood, mortified, completely stupid for thinking that maybe, just maybe, he could see her as something more. She could feel the heat in her cheeks as she mumbled a quick goodnight and ran to her room. If she could just get away from him, from the reminder of how foolish she was, she'd sleep this off, and maybe by morning, this whole mess would be nothing but a bad memory. Maybe he wouldn't even remember it. Dilly, wait. Ashton's voice stopped her before she could get any further down the hall. His hand was on her arm, gentle but firm, turning her around to face him. She swallowed, trying to ignore the electric shock that still raced through her every time his skin touched hers. She couldn't let it get to her anymore. She had been doing this for years, crushing on him, dreaming about him, and where had it gotten her? Ashton. Her voice faltered, but she didn't look away. She had to face this. Look, I get it. It's fine. I understand why you've never… She paused, biting her lip, unable to finish the sentence. There was no need to. I know I'm not your type. I've seen the girls you go for, the ones you've always chased after. They're all the same, skinny, beautiful. And I can't change that. It's okay, I get it. She tried to shrug it off, hoping her voice sounded more composed than she felt. You don't have to say anything. I'm fine. Ashton looked at her like she'd just told him the sky was green. What? No, Dilly. That's not it at all. Her heart twisted, but her pride was stronger. She wasn't going to stand there and let him pity her or tell her she was waiting for some perfect moment that would never come. She didn't need his reassurance. Don't say that, she snapped, yanking her arm out of his grasp and heading toward her bedroom. It's fine. I said it's fine. Dilly, stop. His voice was firm now, his hand on her arm again, but this time, he wasn't letting her go. She turned around, ready to snap at him again, but before she could say a word, his lips were on hers. It was a kiss, no, more than that. It was like he was pulling her into him, demanding, hungry, and everything she had dreamed of but never truly believed could happen. Her hands found their way to his chest, feeling the heat of his body beneath his clothes as he deepened the kiss. A rush of sensations exploded through her, intense, overwhelming. She didn't want to pull away. She didn't want this moment to end. But part of her wondered if it even was real. His lips pulled away briefly, just enough to make her gasp for air. And his words sent a shock through her whole body. You have no idea how much I want you. Was this real? Was he really saying that? Her mind raced as her body reacted to him, pulling him closer, feeling him press against her in ways she never thought possible. Is this real? She asked, breathless, needing confirmation. Yes. It's real. Now, kiss me again. And she did. They came together in a rush, as if everything in the world had led up to this moment. His hands were everywhere, pulling her tighter against him, making her feel more alive than she ever had. She could feel his body responding to hers, and she couldn't stop herself from reacting. But then he paused, looking into her eyes with a mixture of desire and something deeper, something she couldn't name. Dilly, he whispered, his voice low. She barely registered his words before his lips were on her neck, his hands moving with purpose, and she was lost again. All the fears, all the doubts she had ever had, slipped away in the wake of his touch. For the first time, she felt seen. The world outside didn't matter anymore. There was only them. The room felt thick with the tension of the moment as Ashton moved closer, his touch gentle yet insistent. He shifted, his hands steadying her, creating an overwhelming sense of intimacy that made everything feel more real, more meaningful than she had ever anticipated. Every soft brush of his fingers against her skin felt like an unspoken promise, a silent exchange between them, one that was growing more intense with each passing second. Deli felt her breath catch in her throat as he slowly closed the distance, his lips grazing her neck in the lightest of touches, sending shivers down her spine. The sensation was enough to make her forget everything but him. There was a sense of security in his embrace, something about the way he moved with such confidence and care that made her feel like nothing in the world could harm her. His fingers traced the curve of her jaw, lifting her chin to meet his gaze. The intensity in his eyes was unmistakable, but so was the tenderness. "Are you okay?" His voice was soft, yet held a certain warmth that made her heart flutter. "I'm fine," she breathed out, her voice barely above a whisper. Her pulse raced with excitement and anticipation, but there was no fear, just a deep trust in him and everything that was happening. Ashton smiled, a look of genuine affection crossing his face as he leaned in to kiss her. The kiss was slow, deliberate, as though he was savoring every moment. Her heart pounded in her chest as she kissed him back, allowing herself to feel every sensation, the warmth of his lips, the roughness of his stubble against her skin, the comforting press of his body against hers. There was something incredibly intimate about the way they were moving together, a rhythm that felt natural and unhurried, as if they were both savoring the journey as much as the destination. Deli could feel the strength of his desire, but more than that, she could feel how much he cared for her, how much he wanted to make this moment special for both of them. She ran her fingers down his chest, her touch tentative at first, but growing more confident as she explored the hard muscles beneath his skin. Her heart thudded with each movement, the weight of the moment settling over her. She wanted him to feel how much she appreciated him, how much she wanted to connect with him in a way that went beyond the physical. Ashton's hands roamed gently over her body, his touch soft but purposeful, as if he was learning her, understanding her, in ways words could never express. She felt safe in his arms, like she was the most important thing in the world to him. When his lips found hers again, they were more insistent this time, but still gentle, coaxing and inviting. She responded with the same fervor, feeling a deep sense of belonging, a sense that she had found someone who truly saw her for who she was. The air between them was charged, but it wasn't just the heat of the moment that held Deli captive, it was the connection they shared. They were two souls in sync, moving together with a quiet understanding. And the way he held her, the way his hands moved so carefully, made her feel cherished. She wanted to give him everything, not just physically, but emotionally too. As the moment stretched on, they moved together with a rhythm that was almost meditative, the connection between them growing stronger. Every touch, every whisper felt like an affirmation of how much they meant to each other. And in that space, time seemed to stop, leaving only the two of them, wrapped in each other's arms.